Good morning.
Good morning.
Good to see you all. Good to see you all online. So this is kind of an unusual Sunday talk this morning, in that it's a very short talk. It's going to be about 15 minutes. And that's because we're going to have our annual meeting this morning. So in about 15 minutes, I'll end my talk and we'll have a couple minutes transition time. And if you don't want to stay for the annual meeting, you can leave at that time. But I'd encourage you to stay. Even if you're new, you might find it interesting to hear a little bit about what's going on with the center, how things run around here, how things work with programming and financially and things like that. Would love to have you stay. So 15 minutes is not very long, and I've been thinking about what I could talk about in 15 minutes. I think it's obviously not the day to do the 12-fold chain of dependent origination. It's not the day to do the 28 classes of divinities or the 100 dharmas of the Yogacara school. I could probably do 15 minutes on how dodging potholes on narrow streets against oncoming traffic is like navigating the Dharma in our daily lives. But I'm not going to do that. And I could probably talk about how it's a beautiful sunny day out, and we have several days coming up where we're probably going to be in the 40s or close to the 40s. And that feels really good after a long winter. But I'm not going to talk about that either. I'm going to talk about Sangha, because I think it's appropriate to talk about Sangha before we get into the details of how we do Sangha here, to kind of back up and look at the big picture of Sangha. Like, what are we doing here? What are we doing here with Sangha? And so Sangha is the community of practitioners. It can refer to different kinds of communities, different sizes. Usually here we use it to refer to our center, the members of our center and all of our friends and all the folks on the periphery, everyone who gravitates here. And Sangha, of course, is part of the triple treasure, Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, three things that are absolutely essential to our practice. The example of the Buddha, his teachings, the Dharma, and Sangha, the group that practices together. A definition of Sangha from Lion's Roar: a Sangha is a community of friends practicing the Dharma together in order to bring about and to maintain awareness. So we could say awareness, we could say awakeness. We're engaged here in the process of awakening, whatever that means to you. Whether that's fast or slow, whether that's sudden or gradual, subtle or obvious, partial or complete, intermittent, maybe it seems like an aspiration, maybe it seems real, but it's the process of being fully present in our lives. And if we're not there yet, we can be fully present with not being there yet. And guess what? We're there. So we remove the filter of desire. This is the Buddha's most basic teaching, his first Dharma talk. If we see the world through the filter of our own desire, we see the world as we want it to be, not as it is, and it causes all kinds of problems. But we can eliminate that filter. We can sit upright, and we spend enough time doing that things quiet down, that ego, that desire, it quiets down, and we see things the way they really are. And we act accordingly. And we act with great kindness and fulfill the Bodhisattva vow. Binding the self with no rope, as Mark talked about on Tuesday. You can't really put it into words, but it's about acknowledging that things are not separate, that everything is completely connected. That separateness is an illusion that we seem to cultivate over and over. But we can see that things don't exist separately, that they do exist in an interdependent way, and we can submit our individual selves to that interdependent whole. And that's the way of freedom. And that's the way of just being. It's very simple. We can be there, we can operate, we can find this place at the cusp of unity and separateness, and we go back and forth all the time. But if we can be there, we can be there. It seems to accord with perfect posture and laughter. I don't know why that seems to happen, but we bring these things together, and this is where we operate, in that place of wakefulness, which is just here, which is just here. And we're engaged in this process of awakening together. From Bright Way Zen, Sangha provides positive peer pressure. So in light of that fact that we're in this place where we can have positive peer pressure, what are the great tasks of MZMC? And I've come up with 3. I do have a list. It's a short list. And you could certainly name others, and they could change over time, but I've picked out 3 things that I think are our great tasks. And number 1 is to preserve the authentic Dharma. Preserving the authentic Dharma is not an aid to awakening, it is awakening. And Zen is not the only means to awaken. Buddhism is not the only means to awaken, but it is the way that we've been taught by Katagiri and others going way back, the way that we've chosen through our attendance here and our participation, and through our 50-year history here, we have tried to preserve that. And I feel that we have a special responsibility to preserve our particular tradition, Japanese Soto Zen, so that this one particular way of waking up is not lost or diluted. So this doesn't mean that we're narrow in terms of the traditions we draw from. We draw from many traditions. We teach, we are aided in our teaching by many different traditions. It doesn't mean that we're narrow in terms of how the authentic Dharma is expressed. Because authentic Zen practice, it's not the forms exactly, like bowing. Those forms are important, but that's not it exactly. It's not the tradition of the sutras exactly. It's not the way you set up the room. All of those things help us, but authentic Zen does not reside in forms. It resides in being here, whatever brings you here right now. It's that great vitality. That's what we have to preserve. Second, we make the authentic Dharma available to others. And I think that's what we've chosen by our participation here. We could aspire to be a very small group of people who practice intensively together. And that's a wonderful thing to do, but it's not really what we're doing here. I think this group was founded with the idea that it would grow and serve and share the joy. And that's why this group, in the very beginning, moved from a small apartment house to this big house here. The group could have stayed small, but it chose to grow and share. And I'd like to mention just a couple of things about what we do here to share the Dharma. 2 of the biggest things. One is our mentorship program, which many of you are in. This is a program where you can meet regularly with a teacher and they support your practice. Teacher-student relationship is very important in Zen because you can't get it out of books. So mentorship can help us to have a vital lay practice, a really vital and awake practice in the world, facing all of those difficulties and complications out there. And we have over 100 people participating in our mentorship program, which I think is really extraordinary. And the other thing is that we are here at MZMC a priest training center. We don't always define ourselves that way, but I think we are that. Different centers develop different specialties, you could say. And I think we have two complementary specialties. One is helping people to live a vital lay life, and the other is training priests to bring more teachers into the world. And we have a remarkable number of priests here. We currently have 17 priests in our center, which is not that large of a center. We have a really well worked out curriculum and training program. So for those who are ready to make that commitment, and it is an incredibly deep, life-changing commitment, we have this priest path of helping others. And it is about helping. It's about serving. It's not about the glory. You place yourself at the bottom. You do not place yourself at the top. And it's not for everyone. It's not an automatic next step. It takes really deep discernment and reflection. And in the history of MZMC, many priests have stayed here, which is great. It's great to have so many teachers to be able to choose from. And some have gone off and started their own groups, which is a great thing too. And I have this vision of many groups and centers that this place could help to facilitate, maybe throughout Minnesota or maybe other places. This could take a long time to develop. I call this the Indra's Net plan. And I think it would be so good to bring this practice in a very direct, in-person way to people who don't have access to it now. So third, we need to try to make this practice available to everyone in our community, not just a narrow range of folks. And it's kind of happened through our history that in some ways we have brought the Dharma to a fairly narrow group of folks. We recently completed a demographic survey, and the results are in, but we haven't had time to analyze them and think about how to present them. So I can't, give the results today, but they do show that in some ways we're really quite inclusive, but in some other ways we're kind of narrow. And because we're not inclusive in all ways, I think most of us recognize that this is something that's worthy of our attention and something that we will keep working at. So those are the three things. And I would like to end by saying that as we practice here together, we have in front of us the stunning possibility of really deep transformation, individually and as a community. A basic transformation in the way we see the world and how we deal with the world, every one of us. And the word basic doesn't even capture it. I mean, through meditation, you can actually change the way your brain functions. You can drop habits that are so deep you think they're undroppable. We can open ourselves in ways that we haven't even imagined so far. We have this stunning possibility of reordering our lives so that the very important things come first. So we're not being bounced around, but we're acting with agency. To remove all of our impediments, seeing clearly, to remove that basic anxiety, that basic existential pain, the basic existential pain of separateness, we can do that. This is not self-help. It's much deeper than self-help. We don't approach it as a means to get something, to get peace, or to get happiness. We approach it as service. So we approach it as giving something, not getting something. So we preserve the authentic Dharma, we make the teachings available, and we work to make them available to everyone. That's 3 tasks I see on this day of our annual meeting. And it's transformational, but we don't have to think of it as transforming me. That can cause problems if we are working too much on ourselves. We can think about how all beings are transformed when one being is transformed. The way all beings awaken together. That's interconnectedness. It can only happen that way. You can't awaken separately. It can't happen. So all beings awakening together, that's what I think we're doing here.